Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Nutritional Revolution podcast. Today, we have for you guys Zach Friedley, and he's a professional trail runner whose life mission is to make trails more accessible to people with disabilities. As a sponsored athlete with On, Zachary is one of the handful above-knee trailblazers in the world racing on a professional level, a circumstance he aims to change through his advocacy and DEI work. In 2025, Zach is collaborating closely with On and other major brands and race organizers to develop a new adaptive athlete division and policy to welcome disabled runners to major trail racing events around the world. As an athlete, Zach raced and finished several UTMB World Series races in New Zealand, France, Spain, and Switzerland. In 2024, he raced and completed the Sierra Zinal in Switzerland. Through his nonprofit organization, Mendocino Movement Project, Zachary also hosts multiple trail races called Born to Adapt at borntoadapt.org, which invites adaptive runners of all abilities to get out on the trails. Zach trains in beautiful Northern California, where he lives with his wife, Meagan, and their tiny dog, Cleo. Enjoy the episode, guys. Welcome back to the episode, you guys. We have for you guys Zach Friedley. We are super excited to talk to you, Zach. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Amanda, is this right if I say Zach is our first ever para athlete on the pod? Is that correct?
Oh,
Yeah.
Cool.
We're super excited.
better late than never.
Yes, absolutely. Our listeners know how we operate. We like to start with our two truths and a lie. So I'm going to let you break those down for us, Zach.
All right. So I climbed a 6,000 meter peak in a blade.
Ooh,
I lived in an ashram in India.
okay.
I'm a vegetarian.
Oh, okay. Vegetarian. Oh, these are all good. What do you think, Amanda?
So maybe you used to be a vegetarian,
That could be
and that's
good.
the trick.
And
I'm
then
gonna
I
go
don't say anything, right? Until the end.
Don't tell us the
Okay,
answer. Yeah.
all right.
You might. So we've had a few listeners that have when they start telling us their background and history and stuff, sometimes the truths or lies
Okay.
come out. But I feel like you for sure climbed a 6K peak in your blade, like probably multiple. So maybe that's a lie. Maybe it's more than one. I feel like the vegetarian thing. Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna go with Amanda on this one. Maybe the vegetarian is a
Okay.
lie, but yeah,
Okay.
don't tell us the answer.
I
Well,
won't say anything.
we will find out at the end. Okay, why don't you tell us a little bit, Zach, about your journey to endurance sports?
Yeah. So I basically found endurance sports in like 2019. I went to a California event called Born Run, which is a pretty iconic place, and went there with no intention of running. Actually, went there to hand out coffee
Oh,
because that was around the same time I started our nonprofit, and I partnered with a coffee company, and they gave me 25 pounds of coffee. And my plan was to go down there, make the coffee, and hand it out to the runners and talk to them about the project that I had just started. And somehow found myself signed up for the 10-mile trail race there and ran it, and my life changed forever.
amazing. How did that change with COVID, starting in 2019 and then?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think COVID, the bright spot for me around COVID is I lived in Mendocino, California, super isolated place. So I just stayed there and hunkered down and ran the trails and kind of got my bearings and started to like envision what I wanted to do in trail running and met some cool people during that time. I actually met Chris Brown, who is a pro runner. Him and I met at a grocery store, and he was wearing these like Hoka shoes, and I was like, "Hey, are you a trail runner?" And he's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah," but he didn't say that he was a professional trail runner. And we did a few runs. He talked about like Lake Sonoma, and I was kind of like, "Yeah, I want to get into these races, but I'm not ready yet." And he basically told me to just jump in and do it. And so when the races started to come back, I was hungry and kind of had a plan, and I started chipping them away.
That's awesome. That's great. Were you involved in any high school sports or anything like that? Did you grow up in Mendocino?
No, I grew up in the Midwest,
Oh, okay.
Kearney, Missouri.
Wow.
I've been an athlete my whole life. So
Yeah,
sports has been a part of me since probably like 6 years old.
that's great.
I wrestled, I played football. I didn't really run, but you run in
Mm-hmm.
sports, but I wouldn't have said like, hey, I'm a runner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Partly because back then there were no like blades.
Yeah.
So I really kind of gravitated towards a sport that I could take my leg off, which is
Mm-hmm.
wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's where I got my work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
Having to train really hard,
Yeah.
getting beat up.
Mm-hmm.
That really helps the mental toughness
Yeah.
aspect of things. Is when you're out there on the trails, no one's trying to, smash your face.
Right.
So it's
Yes.
hard, but it's a different kind of hard.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow.
So yeah.
So, as a para athlete, what were some of those like big challenges that you faced, kind of whether getting into sport even as like young, like wrestling, or specifically into the endurance world?
Yeah, so para athletics wasn't a thing when I was growing up.
Yeah.
I mean, there was not, you know, an internet that I could like search these people. If it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't on a TV, I wasn't seeing it. So
Right.
I probably don't even remember the first time I saw a person like me, probably like early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So I just had
Wow.
to work really hard at sports. I remember my dad sat me down one time and was like, "Hey, if you want to win matches in wrestling, you're gonna have to work harder than everybody you see."
Mm-hmm.
And he just kind of made it simple. So I worked hard, and sometimes my success didn't come right away. It came after a lot of failures. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that's when I learned like consistency. Just keep on showing up and chipping it away over and over, and you'll eventually get there.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, I have a different pathway in than some of the younger kids these days that
Mm-hmm.
have access to these things. But I think that's also my strength. I had to figure
Yeah.
it out. And now it's kind of all about creating more opportunities for people.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you mentioned the like not having access to a blade initially, right?
Yeah, I
And
mean, I didn't know what a blade was until
yeah,
probably 20 years old.
wow. And I mean, and forgive my lack of knowledge, but like, do we know how long blades have been even available? Like, has it been
Yeah,
that long?
yeah. Actually, I think like in the 90s,
Mm,
there's a guy that is famous for inventing the blade.
mm.
His name's Van Phillips. He invented the cheetah based upon the gait of a cheetah, like its hind
Oh,
legs.
cool.
He's an amputee himself. He actually lives in Mendocino.
Oh,
Yeah, super, super random.
wow.
But yeah, I think he was probably working on that in the 90s. And
Hmm.
then it maybe started to come into mainstream action in the early 2000s. I should
Mm,
look this up one day. I'm not really sure
hmm.
but I think maybe 2004 to
Mm,
2008 is when you started to see them on TV. There was Oscar Pistorius.
mm,
But even then, back then, those were like so out of reach. Like you had to really be connected to own a blade back then. Still
hmm.
kind of today too. You have to be super privileged to have a blade.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, well, what is that experience like from a healthcare perspective? I imagine, is
Yeah,
that
so
covered or
it's not covered, but there's
yeah,
some friends of mine right now that are working state by state to change the law so insurances do have to cover it,
good.
but it's not like a mandated thing.
Mm,
Most people that have running blades these days have been granted it from like a charity or a nonprofit,
wow.
most likely the Challenge Athletes Foundation here in California.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's not something where you go to the doctor or you're like, fitted with this thing. You have to really network and
Wow.
figure it out.
Yeah. And then when you get one, like how much finessing do you have to do to that device to make it work with your height and your other
Yeah.
limbs and like what is that process like?
Yeah, so it's different for everybody. I'm missing my leg above the knee, so I don't have my knee
Hmm.
joint. So the higher
Okay.
up you are, the more intricacies there are.
Mm,
So with me, it's something that I plan my year around.
yeah.
And sometimes you can't necessarily plan. Like right now, I'm going to probably maybe go to Portland on Monday. So
Hmm.
on Tuesday, we can tweak some things on my blade,
Oh wow, yeah.
in like my socket. So it's a lot of finessing. Different things can go wrong. The knee,
Mm,
the blade, the socket.
hmm.
It's like an F1 car, and it's always. I'm always listening to it. I'm always
Yeah.
taking notes, like what happened on a workout today, like how long is, there's maybe a leak in something. And I be
Oh.
like, oh, that leak started 2 Tuesdays ago. So this is
Mm.
definitely something that I need to probably address.
Wow.
And then you throw in like I'm going to Europe to race in the summer for 2 months. So I got to get everything done before I leave. When are the windows? Like all these things, So
Mm-hmm.
it's just kind of planning.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. And then when you first put on your first blade, what
Oh
was that
yeah, that was
experience
sick.
like?
I remember it. I was in Oklahoma City. I went down to this prosthetics place because I had aged out of the Shriners program,
Mm,
which takes care of kids, and that's where I had gotten
mm,
my prosthetics my entire life.
mm-hmm,
And then when I turned 18, I aged out of the system and I went into like private care. So
mm,
back then, I basically found the place in a phone book and
mm-hmm,
was like, oh, that's near my house. I'm going to go there. And they fitted
mm-hmm.
me for a leg. And it was one of the worst experiences of my life. The guy
Oh,
fit me into this thing that just sucked. And I couldn't
yeah.
play flag football with my friends. I became like super non mobile and
Mm-hmm.
struggling to walk. And I wrote them an
Oh,
email. They were a big corporation, and I'm not going to say who they are, but
yeah.
I wrote them an email. I was like, yo, like, I see on your website there's people running and doing these things, and I'm like 20 years old and I can't do this. And the guy that made it told me that's just my life. So they
Oh,
responded
man.
immediately and they were like, come down here to our main office,
Mm.
and we'll take a look. So I went down there and they addressed all these problems, fixed me up to where I could move around and things were good. And while I was there, they were like, hey, have you ever tried a blade before? And I'm like, whoa, a blade? No, I haven't. And so they hooked it up, and the guy said, hey, this takes like some time to get used to and adjust. Don't be frustrated if you can't figure it out right away. It takes time. Well, I figured it out in like 5 minutes. I was flying down this hallway on like a Saturday afternoon. And then the next day we went to the track, and he was like, hey, you have a lot of talent. I would like to connect you with the USA Paralympic coach. And this is like December 2007. So that's kind of when the
Wow.
running thing became like, oh, this is a pathway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. So did you like talking about the mentioning like you it takes a while to get used to it? I makes me kind of think from like a joint responsiveness lens, like how your natural limb responds or rebounds versus the
Yeah.
blade. How is that? I'm so
Yeah.
curious.
You have to like sync it up,
Yeah.
like different blades feel different, different knees feel different.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't know, there's something that my mind can do that I can calibrate it really quick.
Cool.
I like can feel it and the
Yeah.
timing is there. So it might be something that I was born with, just
Yeah.
the ability to figure it out pretty quick.
Yeah, I would imagine like all your like sport background too in high school and
Yeah,
all that stuff, like you know how your body responds and how you know how to listen to your body.
I like to think I'm pretty athletic.
Yeah, you are. You are very athletic. It's incredible. So kind of on the like from a nutrition lens and a sports nutrition lens, area that we work in, I mean, we know that there's so many areas that are underrepresented, and the para nutrition and that kind of stuff is still very underrepresented. And
Yeah,
I'm curious, like from your lens, how has your sports nutrition evolved, but also are you seeing any gaps
yeah,
like through the nutrition and nutrition support lens from your
yeah.
experience?
So it's always evolving,
Hmm.
and there's studies done for people that are amputees. So there's studies about energy consumption of like a
Hmm.
below knee amputee walking,
Hmm.
a below knee amputee running, and then they go with the above the knee. And essentially, the higher up you get from your amputation, so the less anatomy you have, the
Right.
more your body has to work and the more energy it takes to do something. And some of the studies are like showing that like an above knee amputee expends like 80% more energy than like a person with two legs that's walking
Wow.
or running. And there's no studies, done with a person on a trail. So who knows how much more it takes.
Yeah.
I can tell you running on trails up and around mountains is exhausting. And like the next day, like Sierra Zanal, I did in July or in August last year, 30 something K, 2,000 meters of climbing, and
Wow.
in feet, that's like 7,000. and most of it's in the first 5K. The next day, like I was smoked, like
Mm,
I was like crawling around on the ground, not
yeah.
because my limbs were hurt or I was just like, that's how depleted I was.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I wish there would be studies that we would know like how much it actually takes.
Yeah.
And I'm always, kind of tweaking my nutrition. That day I did 90 grams of carbs per day or per hour with like
Great.
maybe like 700 milligrams of sodium because it's a hot
Mm-hmm.
day.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody cramped,
Mm.
even Killian cramped that day. Um, yeah, towards the top of the climb, I had this knot in my quad that I like never experienced.
Oh no.
And yeah, I was like, what? It was like a ball, like,
Yeah.
and it was like kind of moving around. And I took some salt.
Mm-hmm.
But then later on in the day, I heard like Killian cramp in the same spot. And I was like, yeah, like I wasn't alone out there.
Yeah, yeah, validates.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Yeah, the movement mechanic piece and the energy expenditure requirement, like with the limb. Yeah, but I mean that's so fascinating. And then it makes me think too, okay, so energy demands higher, and then from a if we're have higher energy demands and our core temperature is, I mean, our body's warmer because it's working
Yep.
more, so then we're probably losing more fluid.
Totally. I mean, I
So
get soaking wet. Like
yeah.
I'm completely drenched. And then I got sweat with my limbs. So then you got limb volume. So
Mm-hmm.
you got to manage that.
Yeah.
So you got to take in fluids for that. You got to manage your sodium for that because if you
Hmm.
lose too much volume and there's too much space, then like for me, I'm a suction fit. My socket won't
Oh,
actually fit anymore.
yeah.
So my volume definitely changes on those days, and I have these little like foam pads that we make that I can
Hmm.
shove down in my socket to give
Hmm.
me a little bit more room as like the day moves on.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and that's just stuff you learn like
Yeah.
throughout the thing. Like the first time I ever had that happen, I didn't have any foam pad. I had like
Hmm.
wrappers of
Mm.
gels that I was shoving in
Gosh.
there to try to squeeze it in.
Yeah.
So it's just little things like that that you fine tune and figure out, and you like, know that it's going to be hot that day. So you're
Yeah.
going to have to become prepared, or if it's super cold, you're going to have to become prepared. I've had both ends of the spectrum where like
Mm.
I've lost feeling in my limb because it's, like negative 10 degrees and we're on top of a
Oh,
mountain,
yeah.
and now I can't control my leg anymore. Like
Right.
stuff like that, you just got to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Have you, out of curiosity, done any sweat testing, like
I
weighing yourself
have.
before and after? What have
Well,
you
I haven't weighed
found?
myself, but I
Okay.
did a sweat test with precision.
Oh, for sodium loss. Yeah.
Yep, I did that in Chamonix last year, and I
Oh,
was really
great.
surprised that I was low. I thought
Yeah.
based upon like taking my clothes off after a run, I would be
Hmm.
like insane, but no, I think 700, what is it per milliliter or
Milligrams per
something?
ounce or
Yeah,
something. Yeah. Or oh yeah,
milliliters
probably
per,
per liter or something
yeah,
like that, or per 32
yeah.
ounces. Yeah. Yeah,
I've never
that
weighed
is,
though. I should do
yeah.
that.
That would be really interesting. Yeah, to see like fluid loss too. So
Yeah,
there's, the two pieces of the puzzle from the like sweat piece, right? Is the sodium and
yeah,
then the fluid in there. And so yeah, if you're noticing like to the degree of like the fit is totally different because of
yeah,
fluid loss over, and especially with the endurance, right? I mean, you're out there sweating
totally.
for so many hours. Like we've done some calculations with some of our athletes, and like from a fluid loss, I always like to tell them like if you didn't drink any water and you were able to keep going at this rate of loss, you're losing like 16 pounds of body weight from
Yeah,
water, like
yeah,
when
yeah,
you do
yeah,
the math sometimes. Um, and yeah, it's just like really obviously they wouldn't finish if they didn't
yeah,
drink any water, but like just from a weight lens, like how much water their body is processing and offing to like cool themselves in these environments and for that duration, that effort is
yeah.
like it's a lot.
It is a lot
So yeah, that would be really interesting. I encourage you to do that.
Yeah,
Wait before and after,
for sure.
to see what that comes out to. So on the nutrition lens, oh, and the sodium thing is always very fascinating too, because that makes me also want to ask you, have you ever experienced any GI issues with racing?
Kind of, but nothing that comes out. I think honestly, I manage so much stuff when I'm racing that if I did have a GI, it'd be like number six on the list because
Hmm.
I have all these other things that I'm kind of dealing with.
Yeah.
There's never been like a moment when I've had like, oh, I can't continue
Hmm.
because my stomach's messed up.
That's great.
Yeah. So I mean, I try to stay away from like gluten.
Yeah.
So like I'm not like eating donuts or smashing a bunch of pizza or pasta before a
Right.
race
Yeah.
because that will lead to GI stuff.
Yeah.
So I know what my body needs
Mm-hmm.
before a race, after a race, and I start to like dial it in.
Yeah.
That way, I'm not like out. I don't really eat out, before a
Mm-hmm.
race. I try to keep the same stuff I eat at home whenever I'm training.
Yeah.
I try to actually replicate it whenever I'm on the road,
Yeah.
which is tough, because when you're on a team, everybody
Yeah.
wants to go to team dinners, and
Yeah.
I'm just kind of the psycho that's like, hey, I'm not going because I eat my own thing,
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
you
I
know?
think that's very smart. I've heard horror stories. I just recently had that like exact thing. One of our sponsored athletes, like one of their sponsors took them out to a team dinner and she got
Yeah,
food poisoning the whole
yeah, you can't
night
risk
before the
it.
race. Yeah. It's like, ugh. Um,
That's rolling
but
the dice because you've
yeah.
no idea what's going on back there.
Totally. Yeah. 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 And yeah, I 100% am on board with that. Pack your own stuff or eat as similarly as possible
Yep.
just to be in control. It's just a day or two before the race to, yeah, stay on top of it. What nutrition products do you like to use that like have worked well for you during a race?
Yeah, so I kind of have evolved,
Hmm.
back in the day, I was a big tailwind guy
Mm-hmm.
and I was just tailwind all the time. And then Spring Energy, which
Yep.
I had some issues with, but didn't know that I was having
Yep.
it.
Yep.
I was like, oh, the math, I shouldn't have had this problem.
Yeah.
And then I think like 2 years ago, I started to use NeverSecond.
Mm-hmm.
Really liked it a lot. And then in the past year, I've been doing Precision and Martin.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, and I really like those products a lot. And right now, actually, I'm experimenting with fat adaptation.
Oh.
So I haven't been running with carbs at all, which is
Oh, how's that
interesting.
feel?
I had a breakthrough today,
Oh,
actually.
good.
I'm getting close to being fat adapted. I'm in
Okay.
ketosis.
Yep.
And on the back half of my run today, I felt incredible.
That's
Um,
great.
and yeah, I'm just kind of, what is it? I am metabolically flexible.
Yeah.
That's what I'm learning to be. Like, I'm not gonna live by this model on all my
Right.
stuff, but I'm experimenting to see how I feel
Mm-hmm.
and trickling in carbs like on runs like last weekend
Mm-hmm.
and just seeing instead of going with like 90 every hour because we don't really know what the long-term effects are going to be on our bodies when we're putting in this mass amounts of carbs. A decade
Yeah.
from now, we could all have problems with diabetes or
Yeah.
something, So I think it's smart to figure out what works best for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you, yeah, I think that's a fantastic point. And also our teeth. I've had
Oh
so
yeah.
many, so many clients and my dentist and their
Yeah.
dentist and,
Now I'm wearing
um,
Invisalign. So I,
oh
I wear
yeah.
Invisalign like 22 hours a day.
Yeah.
And so now I can't be like sloshing around sugar water in my mouth.
Yes.
So I'm like, kind of like, what do I do? So
Yeah.
part of this experiment now is see like how I do with this fat adaptation.
Yeah.
But I don't think for long efforts I'm gonna do it. Like
Yeah.
maybe I would roll the first 3 or 4 hours, and then the back half I would sprinkle in carbs and get
Mm-hmm.
ignited, or something.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you, like, are you taking ketones also?
I'm not taking ketones by
Okay.
themselves, but I mean, I just started this a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
I just got this product called a keto brick.
I
So I'm an
haven't heard of that
experience.
one.
Yeah, it's a product that's made for fueling yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's 1,000 calories per brick, and it's got less than like one carb in it. So it's
Wow.
got proteins and fats. So I'm gonna try
Yeah.
that. I got some really nice MCT oil
Mm-hmm.
from Bulletproof that I'm gonna try.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have tried the ketones that are in the bottle, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
not. It seemed kind of gimmicky, to be honest.
Yeah.
I know there's probably some legit ones, but the ones I
Yeah.
got, I just think they're just crazy marketed, and it reminded me of like a 5 hour energy drink. It's
Yeah.
like I don't know what this is doing, but it did
Yeah.
something. Maybe I don't know.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And they're incredibly expensive.
Oh yeah.
Like,
On top of that,
yeah. It is the fat adaptation is very interesting from like the literature lens, right? And looking
yeah,
at that and especially in endurance. And
yep,
yeah, and I'd be curious too, like it makes me wonder, right? Could like we can move that oh gosh, now I'm blanking on the fat oxidation, like I like picture the graph in my mind right now, but like where that crossover point is, right? We can
Yeah.
move that, and we can test that too, usually with like forms of gas exchange, like
Yep.
when you're running. Have you done any of that? Like the
I
gas
haven't done
exchange?
any of that. I have access to it
Yeah.
in Zurich
Nice.
whenever
Yeah.
I'm there with on, but usually we're
Yeah.
working on my blade stuff, and
Yeah.
the like physiological stuff is
Hmm.
taking a back seat because my blade is like super important.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that I mean that is very interesting. And then the one thing I'd be curious about too, I think it's good you're sprinkling in the carbs because the one thing I recall from the literature was like the folks that went like full keto, they down regulated the carbohydrate receptors in their small intestine. And so then when they raced and brought the carbs in at the high level, they just
Yeah,
couldn't absorb them, right?
couldn't absorb
Because
it.
so
Yeah.
yeah, the sprinkle in seems like a really good call. Did you feel better when you tested that out? Like,
Yeah. So last weekend I did it's my first long run in a long time because I'm kind of recovering from a foot injury. And so
mm,
2 hours on my feet was the longest I've done all year since
yeah.
probably December. So I
Wow.
had that.
Hmm.
And I went fasted
Mm,
for like 20 hours and I was miserable. I was like,
yeah.
got back to the car and was like, oh my God, this was terrible. Came home, crashed, ate some food, slept. The next day I went for another run.
Mm,
This was hill repeats. I did four
oof.
times 5 minutes to the top of this mountain. And that was when I did 15 milligrams or 15, yeah, 15 grams of carbs, hour one, and
Hmm.
15 an hour two. And I felt great. Like
Oh, good.
towards the end of the run, I was like, wow, this was amazing. Like,
Yeah.
so it was kind of cool that I had that reaction
Yeah.
and I like to experiment,
Yeah.
I like to see what works and how I feel and like take notes.
Hmm.
My coach just told me about a study that they just did with people that were doing like the fat adapted fasting. They did like 800 repeats one day, and
Oh,
then the
wow.
same athletes they did with the actual carbs, and each test was the same.
Mm,
So yeah, I don't know. There's not a lot of information out there around the fat
yeah.
stuff,
Hmm.
but there's also not a lot of information on the long-term effects of
Hmm.
rolling down 90 grams of carbs for 10 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. 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 It is. I wonder the same things. And especially, it's just, yeah, it's an interesting world because the literature that looks at performance and where we see performance benefits, the literature looks at these very simple sugar forms. And so that's what
yep,
these sports nutrition products are doing. They're making these very simple sugar forms because that's what we saw in the literature and that's what's validated by the literature, which is great. Okay. But then, yeah, should we be eating these things that have no nutritive value and, like you're
yeah,
saying, spike our blood sugar and give us this fast energy and for hours on hours on hours?
yeah.
And
I mean,
how is
sometimes
that
people do
change?
it for like 20 hours plus. I mean,
Yeah.
that can't be good.
Yeah. Yeah, gut microbiome and vascular health and yeah, all these things, teeth.
Luckily for me, my efforts are like maximum 12 hours.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Man. Yeah. I wonder where we'll be in, yeah, 5, 10 years from now with the sports nutrition. It'll be a very interesting world. So talking about the energy dynamics and all that stuff from a body perspective and the efforts that you're doing, do you, outside of right now when you're doing your adaptation phase, do you typically do like a multi-day carb load or like a higher carb diet in the days leading up to a race?
no, I keep it pretty standard of how
Yeah.
I do when I train,
Mm-hmm.
which might be higher carb. Like this is gonna bust my thing in the beginning, but I eat a lot of like steak,
Mm-hmm.
rice,
Mm-hmm.
and like chicken, and
Mm-hmm.
like simple foods. Luckily, my wife enjoys cooking, and so we have this like rotation of different meals that I do that are just pretty simple. I don't like a
Yeah.
lot of ingredients. I kind of dread going out to eat, to be honest, because when I go out to eat, I feel terrible, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like to eat things that make me feel good, and I listen to my body, and I like will follow those cravings if I need meat or if I need
Yeah.
lettuce or if I need whatever or fruit or
Mm-hmm.
so I think the body kind of tells you what you need if you
Yeah.
listen to it.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. And sometimes I require a lot of food, and other times I
Mm-hmm.
don't require a lot of food. So I just kind of be flexible.
Did we just win, Amanda? He's not a vegetarian.
You
Uh,
did.
We got our lie right. Oh my goodness. I love it when that happens.
that's funny.
Yeah. I'm like always listening when like in more intently to like throughout the episode when we do our two truths and lies to see if I pick anything up. So
I've
yep.
been vegetarian for 6 months one time when I went to
Oh
India
wow.
because
Yeah.
I was in an ashram and that's all they ate
Mhm.
was all that food
Yeah.
and they really inspired me to continue that whenever I
Mm.
returned back. And I did it for about 6 months, and then I was just like, can't do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I love
It's
meat. What can I
yeah.
say?
Yeah. Oh, is that the Missouri? And is that what you
It's
said?
probably the Kansas City, Missouri, because
Yeah.
it's like big barbecue.
Yeah.
I'm a big barbecue person. I'm like
Yeah.
an aficionado for a nice steak.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a good steak is a good
A
steak.
good steak is a good
Um,
steak.
yeah. Okay. So let's see. Talked a little bit about nutrition, no super intent like carb loading specific, but listening to your body and trying to
Yeah,
replicate too in these like outside of your normal home range like race scenarios, trying to bring nutrition with you. Um, what does what's your race morning breakfast look like? What's your go-to there?
nothing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not a breakfast person to begin with. So even at home during the week,
Mm-hmm.
I naturally don't want to eat. And I have experimented with eating and,
Yeah.
experimented with waking up and putting calories in and then going on a run. I just don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the best thing I've ever done in the morning before like a big training run is I had a Martin bar, the ones that are like they're like maybe 40 grams of carbs.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that. That was easy on my stomach,
Yeah.
but I'm just not a morning food person.
Mm-hmm.
So typically, before a race, especially if it's early in the morning, I'll drink coffee. I'll
Mm-hmm.
have my stuff ready to go, and 5 minutes into a race, I'm sipping on my carb, and that's what kind of starts me off.
Wow, that's great. So does that mean you get to sleep in more? You don't have to be the person that wakes up like 3 hours before race start to eat.
I like to get up early
You
before
do?
a race. Yeah, I don't like to. I like to have like no rush. I'm
Yes.
a big no rush person.
Yeah.
So I really I like to make my coffee,
Mm-hmm.
maybe sit and scroll on my
Mm-hmm.
phone and just chill.
Yeah.
I don't want to cut it to the last minute.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Okay. With talking kind of from a training lens and as a para athlete, out of curiosity, like, have you has it been something where you like has it been difficult to find a coach that understands potentially like your specific needs? And then two, how do you feel like your training needs need to be structured differently than maybe a non-para athlete, or do they?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not that difficult actually.
Mm,
My first coach was a para coach for para triathlon.
amazing.
So she had been around para athletes. So that
Hmm.
worked really well. And then for the last 2.5, 3 years, I've been working with Eric Orden, who's
Mm,
well known as the Born to Run coach.
yeah.
He
Hmm.
was McDougall's coach for the book Born to Run whenever he
Mm,
did that. And then they did Born to Run 2. And that's how I met him. And he's a mountain guy. So he's got a lot of mountain knowledge. And
yeah.
we do a lot of hill and cadence and heart rate. Like I've learned so much working with him.
Wow.
And we dial in a lot of different things that are maybe different for me.
Hmm.
Like if my limb starts to have a problem with soreness, like
Yeah.
skin issues, I'm always like I probably over communicate of what is going on. That way we can tailor a workout and be flexible. And,
Yeah.
if I have something scheduled tomorrow, like I don't have to do it. Don't put yourself in a position
Hmm.
that I'm going to be down for like a week because I did some stupid workout that's on the
Right.
thing. So I think the communication factors, we're always communicating. I've changed my running cadence since working with
Hmm.
him.
Hmm.
Being aware of my cadence, being aware of my biodynamics of my body.
Hmm.
When I get fatigued on like what's going on with my foot placement, there's so much happening,
Yeah.
especially with different shoes, different blades.
Yeah.
There's so many different things that can change my like running gait. And I
Hmm.
think part of being a para athlete is our bodies are just adapting, and I'm always learning something new. We're like in it together, we're
Hmm.
both curious,
Mm-hmm.
about this stuff, and that's probably why we enjoy it.
Yeah.
So we're always tweaking it. It's not like we have this thing figured out. It's like, oh, this worked, this doesn't work, this is working,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always evolving.
That's neat. That's great. Well, I'm super happy to hear you say that with the coaches and yeah, having somebody like that. It does. I also wonder kind of too with the blades, what your thoughts are on this, if you notice this. It makes me also kind of think of the, shoes now with the carbon plates in them and stuff like
Oh
that,
yeah.
and how they're saying like you can only wear them for a couple runs before the carbon plate. Like how with your blade, is that something that needs to be like changed out after so many miles, or
Yeah.
like do you notice
Yeah.
lack
So
of
yeah, I have a blade now. I'm using an Oser Exceed,
mm,
and I have three of them, and I have
oh,
them. So they're identical, same
right.
categories. Um, the only difference is I have one at like a 20 millimeter stack height. I got one at a
Mm,
32 millimeter stack height, and I got one at a 40.
mm,
So
interesting.
I can use, we call it like microdosing shoes. So like I'll do
Yeah.
a low profile, I'll have my training one, and then I have like a marathon one that's like like a really thick one.
Yeah.
This is brand new. I haven't been this way. I've only been this way since January.
Okay.
Um, Before this, I was using the same blade at the same low stack height, and I was using the same shoe all the time because
Oh,
I was on
wow.
mountains all the time, and I
Yeah.
loved it.
Hmm.
Well, I signed up for the New York City Marathon last year, and after Mammoth Trail Fest, oh, actually,
Hmm.
after I went to Cotopaxi to actually climb this mountain, after I got done with that trip, I hooked up this taller stack height blade. So I went from 20 millimeter to 40 millimeter,
Wow.
which is huge,
Yeah.
and started to run in a super shoe with a carbon plate.
Oh, wow.
And I loved it.
Yeah.
I got super fast, and it was just a different deal. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna probably do a training block like this for a few weeks and see what happens. Um, Ended up stressing my foot out actually.
Yeah.
And the reason why I stressed my foot out is I was so tall that I was
Mm.
actually wearing super fat these like stack heights all the time, even when I was resting. So my foot
Oh,
never was resting.
yeah.
And it just one day it's like, no, we can't take this anymore.
Yeah.
So now I have three blades, all different. So I can do all these different shoes, and my body really appreciates that.
Yeah.
But even the blades I've noticed, uh, each blade feels different.
Hmm.
And we actually realized, even though it's a category four blade, each blade has a different layer. They have these different layers of carbon,
Oh,
so they could be slightly different, and I can tell. So like
whoa.
one blade gives me a really nice pop, and another one's a little bit stiffer,
Yeah.
but they're coming from the company. They're the same. So
Interesting.
there's little bitty tiny things like that.
Yeah.
I think I run so much and I'm so, like in tune with these things, that I know like which blade is going to be,
Yeah.
pushing me this way, but it changes my gait a lot.
Yeah.
So I've got to be flexible with that as well. And I got to be aware, like feeling my body, like my calves are getting tight, my
Mm-hmm.
hips, my like pelvic area, my sacrum. There's just so
Hmm.
many things.
Yeah.
Um, but I think I like it. I mean, obviously I like it
Yeah.
because it's not straightforward, and it's not like, all right, here's the plan and follow all these things. It's like
Yeah.
you're just having to figure it all out and just be in tune.
Yeah, problem solve.
Problem solve.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so you obviously have a load of mental toughness. I feel like any endurance athlete, no matter what, has obviously developed some mental toughness. And then we bring into the picture of like as a para athlete as well. And like you're saying, all these different thoughts when you're racing that are not thinking about your GI, that you already have to like do this checklist. Um, I mean, you mentioned the wrestling, and like school sports helping. Is there anything else you think that's helped with your mental toughness over the years?
Yeah, actually, meditation. I
Oh,
do a lot of
nice. Yeah.
meditating whenever I run, especially when it gets really, really tough, or
Mm,
if it's like really scary. You're maybe on a mountain and
hmm.
it's like 2,000 foot, drop offs, and I'm scared
Yeah.
of heights. And
Yeah.
how do you manage that? So I go into like my breathing, where I'm like breathing through my nose, and I just become like I would if I'm meditating. And
Hmm.
I try to really harness my calmness in those
Mm-hmm.
extreme moments. And
Hmm.
I think that helps me because with like tension, there's a chance something could break. And when
Mm-hmm.
you're very peaceful, you're kind of
Mm-hmm.
in the flow and you just move right through. And I think
Yeah.
that really helps me a lot.
Yeah. That's a great analogy, like saying, yeah, I think that's spot on. So like, do you meditate not when you're running? So
Hmm.
you have kind of tools to, you know how to do that or what your process is, and then you can bring that into the running.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I didn't know I was meditating when I ran. So like I went to India and lived in ashram and
Mm-hmm.
learned how to meditate with a man named Muhammad Fakirnanji.
Mm.
He was in his 90s, and basically I just did what he did for weeks on end. I was there for
Wow.
maybe like about 4 weeks, and
Mm-hmm.
I came back and integrated what I learned into like my everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily like have an alarm that goes off at 10 a.m. and I'm in the corner meditating. For
Mm-hmm.
me, I can pick up that tool at any time when I'm on an airplane, I'm in an
Mm-hmm.
airport. I maybe need to take 5 minutes after this call that we're on
Mm-hmm.
to maybe
Mm-hmm.
meditate to go into the next thing. So I'm flexible with it and I know
Mm-hmm.
I can call on it at any time. And maybe it's a minute, maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I don't do it for 3 days. Like there's no real pressure to do it. I
Mm-hmm.
just know that I can call on it whenever I want and it's right there for me.
That's amazing. For myself and the listeners, but what is the thing you're calling on? I mean, I know you mentioned obviously when you're running, thinking about breath work. So is it a breath work thing, or is it something that that
Yeah.
man in India taught you from like a mental focus or lack of focus lens? Like,
Yeah, I can give you a high level overview, or I guess maybe a low level, because
yeah,
I it took me a long time to figure
right.
this out. But it's to keep it simple. It is breath, so
Mm-hmm.
you can be aware of your breath, like
Mm-hmm.
breathing in and breathing out, and you just kind
Mm-hmm.
of cut the cord of all these thoughts, and there is no
Mm-hmm.
thought,
Right.
and you're just in your body in this moment,
Mm-hmm.
and you may be moving forward. If you're on a trail.
Mm-hmm.
So you just kind of really focus on those things and not have those like, oh, did I respond to that email, or what am I going to eat
Right.
after this race, or
Yeah.
is there somebody behind me? Is what's going on over here?
Mm-hmm.
You're just kind of just cutting it all out, and you're just like right here, right now.
Yeah.
And the breath
Yeah.
helps because you're breathing in, you're
Mm-hmm.
breathing out. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, I have like a visual of like my spine. And when my breath comes all the way in, it's all the way at the top and then it comes back down. So I think
Ah,
about that,
yeah.
and I'm not thinking about the emails or
Yeah.
whatever is going on. It's like you're
Yeah.
just cutting out the chaos that's
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be there. I mean,
Yeah.
everything's going to be back whenever you're done doing that. But for that
Right.
moment,
Yeah.
nothing. That's
Yeah.
that's the goal. It's
Yeah.
very it sounds simple. Sometimes it's very hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I like that like thinking of the as you breathe in the oxygen kind of like coming up your spine. I think that's helpful. We've had a few sports psychologists on, and I remember a lot of them talking about like trying to take like the thought that's in here in your brain
Yeah,
to something outside. So there's a lot of like thinking about like having your brain shift to focusing on things like whether you see or you smell or you
totally.
hear.
It's like the right here, right now. Like,
Yeah.
like the air and the
Mm-hmm.
Christmas, and maybe
Yeah.
there's like a certain smell, and that just kind of brings you right into this moment.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think that's so cool to hear. Okay. Um, oh my goodness, time is flying. I have so many questions still for you, so I'm gonna
Keep
move
them
along
coming.
here. Yeah. Okay. So I'd love for you to tell us and the listeners about B2A or Born to Adapt.
Hmm.
When did you start that? Tell us about it. What are you guys doing over there? What's
Yeah,
going
so
on?
we started the nonprofit in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
It was called Mendocino Movement Project. It still is.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically like the parent company of Born to Adapt.
Mm-hmm.
But then COVID happened, and I had gone to that trail race called Born to Run and
Mm-hmm.
met a guy named Louis Escobar, who's a famous race director. He was in the
Mm-hmm.
book Born to Run as well. He
Mm-hmm.
took the cover photo.
Oh, cool.
Just a nice guy.
Yeah.
And I went back to one of his races in 2021 when the races started to open up,
Mm-hmm.
and he had me on his podcast, and we were talking like this, and he asked me a question like, "Oh, what do you want to see in the world?" And I said, "I want to see more para athletes in trail races, and I don't understand why it's not happening and why these
Yeah.
race directors aren't doing it."
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Well, why don't you do it?" And I was like,
Mm.
"Okay." And he's like, "So I'm a race director." He's like, "I can teach you what I know, and we can
Mm.
do it at Born to Run." So Lewis invited me to come down to his event in 2022, and that was the first ever Born to Adapt. He actually named it. He actually
Wow.
texted me and was like, "Hey, what do you think of Born to Adapt?" And I'm like, "Dude, I love it." So we opened up registration. We had like 7 people come,
Wow.
wheelchairs, visually impaired, blades, and yeah, and that was basically what started it off. And it's
Wow.
evolved into events where we've had them in New Zealand. We've done running clinics. We're doing a Broken Arrow activation and a Mammoth Trail Fest activation. So it started there, but it's evolving and it's kind of getting into mainstream trail running.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like in the next 5 years, there'll be a Born to Adapt everywhere. And it
Amazing.
won't just have to be me there. It'll be like an actual thing that I can teach people and
Hmm.
educate people, and it continues on, which is
Yeah.
what we want.
Yeah, that's amazing. And do you guys have a youth like para athletes as well out of
Yeah.
curiosity? Yeah.
Yeah. So one of our first athletes, whoever came, his name's Sean Wall.
Mm,
Sean's probably in 6th grade now.
mm,
Yeah, and so I design a lot of my courses. Like I'm going to Mammoth
mm,
in May,
mhm.
right after our Born to Adapt event in Central California, to scout out a wheelchair route for Sean. And
Oh, cool.
so essentially, it's for Sean, but it's going to be for anybody in a wheelchair. So I have
Yeah.
my friends are these people, and I keep them in my mind of like, how can they come to this event? But it's going to impact so many people.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and I think like Mammoth is a great place for kids,
Hmm.
even though it's super hard to get to,
Yeah.
but it's amazing. And yeah, I just want to create an event for a person that wasn't there for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Super
Yeah.
easy to think about 12-year-old Zach. What did this kid need that wasn't
Yeah.
available?
Totally. Yeah. I think that's so incredible for kids in that age. Like, yeah, like you're saying, like growing up and having to choose sports where you had to completely remove your limb and it wasn't something that, yeah, was involved in the sport. And now, like being able to have younger kids or youth come together that are in that situation and be around.
Visibility,
Yeah,
huge.
exactly. Yeah, that's really incredible. So we will be linking the Born to Adapt website for our listeners below so they can read more about that. And then, yeah, that's also just a fascinating point you bring up too, right? Is like we have to, as race directors, like think about courses and how these athletes are going to get across this course. And it makes me think I was just at Sea Otter, which is like a big
Yeah, yeah. They have a big
biking.
adaptive thing there, right?
Yeah, they do
Yeah.
I feel like they do a really good job. And yeah, there is multiple like arm only like pedal, pedal folks out there coming across the finish line. It's just, yeah, I think it is important and yeah, really incredible to see people just, yeah, kicking butt out there. Really.
Yeah.
Incredible. Okay, so I'll get kind of zip through some of my questions here, but what would you say to a fellow para athlete who's considering getting into endurance sports but feels intimidated or potentially unsupported?
Well, to feel intimidated, I feel is a pretty normal feeling. Like, I think maybe try to harness because there's like anxiety,
Yeah.
that you could feel, or maybe it's excitement. You can choose
Mm-hmm.
which one to want to maybe embrace and choose the excitement
Yeah.
and know that the community is there supporting you, especially us fellow like para athletes.
Mm-hmm.
You're not
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah.
And I'm always open for an Instagram conversation if somebody's like, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this thing. What do you think?"
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to share my experience or maybe some
Mm-hmm.
wisdom. But go for it. Take
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
advice.
That's great. So we've seen kind of slow improvements in the adaptive athlete representation in endurance events. But what do you think still needs to change?
All right. I think there needs to be maybe a team for like high performance para athletes where
Yeah.
you see like a Terex or an On
Mm-hmm.
Trail or
Mm-hmm.
maybe a Nike,
Yep.
maybe a brand comes out with a high performance para team
Mm-hmm.
that's
Does Red Bull
supported.
have that?
I've never seen a rebel athlete ever in my life that has an actual disability. I could be
Y-
wrong, but
Yeah.
I've actually been trying to pitch Red Bull for like
Yeah.
years.
You'd think with like all the extreme sports that there might actually be a lot of para athletes or like injured athletes. I know
Yeah.
several cyclists actually have like had spinal injuries and lost control
So
of
they
their.
do a big thing in May called the Run for Wings or something, or the Wings for
Oh,
Life. Wings for
okay.
Life. And I know this because David Kilgore is a friend of mine, and he's my athlete manager at On. He's
Mm.
a Red Bull athlete, and
Oh,
they do this event to fundraise money for spinal cord injuries.
oh, great.
But to my knowledge, Red Bull doesn't have a para athlete on any squad.
Okay. We need to see more of that. Yeah, I think that's,
I'll slam a Red Bull to be on there.
oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I've actually done it in a race, and it actually
Yeah.
wakes you up pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
in a hole and you don't know what to do, find a
Yeah.
Red Bull. It'll probably help.
Yeah, 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 definitely. Okay, so I just want to make sure I ask ones we really want to hit on here. We already found out with your lies from the two truths and a lie, so we don't need to do that. What races you already shared with us before we hit record one of them, but what races are coming up for you this year that you're training for?
Yeah, so my debut this season will be Broken Arrow. I'm
Okay.
doing the VK, which I think they call the Ascent now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm also doing the 23K there. And then right after that, I'll fly to Europe and get ready for Sierra Zinal in Switzerland to try to improve on my time from last year.
Mm.
And then I'm running a UTMB event during the Chamonix week.
Wow.
And then after that, I'm doing Mammoth Trail Fest.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to switch gears and do like 8 weeks or 6 weeks for the New York City Marathon. I want to qualify for the pro division at Boston next year.
Cool.
And yeah, I think the road marathon for me is so new, and it's
Mm-hmm.
challenging to figure that out. So it excites me. So you have to follow the excitement.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And then anything coming down the pipeline for the Born to Adapt?
Oh yeah, we got Born to Adapt in Central California, so it's
Mm-hmm.
like the OG event
Mm-hmm.
in Los Olivos. We still have spots available there. It's May 17th.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Broken Arrow,
Mm-hmm.
18K. They reserve 20 spots for Born to Adapt athletes. And
Amazing.
the 18K is perfect because you're just getting a taste of it, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not like super long, but it's still
Yeah.
pretty hard. And you're going to be supported by tons of community out there. So I really
Mm-hmm.
recommend that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are doubling down on Mammoth Trail Fest. From last year, we did kind of like a beta test there,
Mm.
and a few of my fellow para athletes came, and I really saw what the vision could be there. And Tim is
Wow.
wonderful to work with. I wish everybody could be like Tim, and
Mm.
the world would be pretty dope.
Yeah.
He's a
Oh,
collaborator. He's
yeah.
a person that you bring an idea to, and it's like
Mm.
not going to just sit there for weeks on end. He there's like this like kind of like a dance. It's like
Yeah.
he has ideas, I have ideas, and he's willing to make it happen.
That's cool. That's amazing. Um, Gosh, that made me think of something when you were talking about that. So you mentioned packing for Canyon, so you're not racing.
Now I'm going to
Okay.
speak. I'm on a panel tomorrow
Okay.
with fellow adaptive athlete Mohammed Lana. He's a
Mm.
2 or 3 time Paralympian
Mm-hmm.
medalist in paratriathlon. Dude finished MDS, Marathon Disables, in
Wow.
2013.
Yeah.
And he's coming to Canyons to race the 25K. And so him and I will be on a panel tomorrow in Auburn at the
Mm-hmm.
expo at 12:30. And
Great.
then I'm staying, and I got some on-trail athletes that are on the squad with me. Adrian McDonald's racing the 25K, Jeff Mogavero 100K, and maybe another person. So a little on trail reunion is
Awesome.
going to happen.
That's great. Good, good. Okay. I'm going to do some fast audience questions for you. What is your favorite recovery tool?
Favorite recovery tool. Um, right now, I like this foam roller that I got, but I also have these like scraping tools that I just
Oh, yeah.
got. The ones that you can do
Like
like your calf.
fascia
Like,
or whatever. Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I like those a lot.
Yeah. You feel like it helps, like you notice a difference from
I
it?
do notice a difference.
Yeah.
I'd say my top three are my foam roller. I have a ball. It's like a lacrosse ball that I use for my
Mm-hmm.
foot.
Mm-hmm.
And these like scrapers. I like them a
Yeah.
lot.
Awesome. I haven't bought my own personal scraper yet, but I have had that like from a, it
Yeah.
was like PT and stuff. And yeah,
Yep.
it's,
I
yeah,
just got it brand new. I went to a
yeah.
PT and she like scraped my foot and my calf and like
Mm,
my around my Achilles and my ankle, and my like mobility like became like pretty free. And I'm like, oh wow, I
amazing.
need this right now.
Yes.
So I bought
Yeah.
one.
That's awesome. What's your favorite recovery meal?
Whew, favorite recovery meal. A lot of times I crave like a ribeye steak, especially after a massive effort.
Yep.
Or like a classic, especially when I'm in France
Mm.
or Switzerland, the pizza there is
Oh,
phenomenal.
yeah.
And I'll just go with like a margarita pizza. Pretty
Yeah.
basic, but I like
Amazing.
it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, just quick question. Have you tested your ferritin, your iron?
No.
Okay.
Well, wait, I did that thing. What's it called? The blood company that is really big.
Is it Inside Tracker?
Yeah, I did that.
Okay.
Is that tested in
They would
that?
have tested ferritin, yeah.
Yeah. The only thing I remember is they said my age is like 5 years younger than what I am, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Nice. You're doing something right. You're doing something right. I just asked because you sounds like you really love steak. So I
I
wonder
do.
sometimes when your iron's low, you'll crave red meats and stuff like that.
Interesting.
But it could just be
Could be the
the
Kansas City
Missouri.
in me
Yeah.
as well. But
Kansas
yeah, I
City.
do like red meat. But then there's times where I'll be like, I don't think I want a steak, and that really weirds me out
Oh,
when that happens.
yeah. Something must be wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do you eat? I think we answered this one, but it says, do you eat real food during races? And then if so, what are your go-to at the aid stations?
Yeah, I don't ever mess with aid stations, to be honest.
Yeah.
Aid stations, I'm getting water. I
Yeah.
don't mess around with anything there. Partly because you never know what's going on there.
Yeah.
And what if I got like tested
Yeah.
from a drug thing? I want to be able to trace everything I put in my
Yep.
body.
Yeah. Smart. Very
So
smart.
it's a case of, I mean, it's really helpful to have them there,
Hmm.
but nah.
Yeah. Yeah. What is your nutrition like in the off season? Or I guess maybe how is it different from in season?
Yeah, that's a tough one because I don't feel like I mean, I do take time off and I eat whatever, but for me, I kind of have to be careful because my prosthetic is designed for me at a certain weight.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I can't go insane and
Yeah.
like gain 15 pounds or lose 15
Right.
pounds. So I have to kind of float
Yep.
around a certain weight and be
Yep.
really diligent about how
Hmm.
much food I eat.
Hmm.
And I like track my macros
Hmm.
through an app.
Yep.
So it's something that's just part of living with what I have, you know?
Hmm.
And it took me a long time to realize that. There'd be times where I'm like, oh my gosh, my leg doesn't fit anymore. And I'm like, oh, I gained 20 pounds. What do you
Wow.
know?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
the gosh, they're going crazy. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh no, no, it's no worries. I don't hear it. Okay. Our last question is what is training like in the off season? So it sounds like maybe not hugely different.
Well, so it is a little different. We do a lot
Yeah.
of speed stuff, track workouts, because I'm definitely trying to build up my speed. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I have the marathon goal in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the difference will be like my coach will be like, take your watch off, don't
Mm-hmm.
look at numbers,
Yeah.
or go run and do whatever you want. Like
Yeah.
if you want to go run a trail, go run a trail. If you want to do this, have some fun.
Yeah.
But it always comes back. I really like structure. I
Yeah.
kind of crave it. And if I don't have workouts in the thing, it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of just my personality, you know?
Yeah. 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 I don't think you're alone. I think even when we need to take a rest week, I think I'm totally the same. I need you to tell me like where I should cut it off. Like, should it
Yeah.
be, because yeah, otherwise things can get a little crazy.
But I got a
So,
friend that doesn't like structure, that's a elite athlete, can't thrive in structure, but can thrive in
wow.
no structure, which is like mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
But it just shows everybody's different and
Yeah.
there is no plan that's going to work.
Yeah.
You just got
Yeah.
to go with what feels good for you.
Yeah.
And then once you do that, then I think you'll find your success.
Yeah. I feel like too that person's probably like really good at listening to their body because I think my issue is like, oh, take like a recovery week, but like do things that feel good. And it's like, okay, we're gonna go for like a run, and it's like, I'll just keep going and keep going. It's,
Totally.
it's, yeah. So that person probably is really good at listening to their body, I feel like, maybe. Or they're
I'm gonna,
really just
I'm gonna,
genetically
or
talented.
I think he's just a freak, to be honest. Like
Yeah.
he eats whatever he wants. He'll
Yeah.
sleep sometimes.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
like,
he is
how do
a
you do
genetics
this,
freak.
man?
Yeah.
Like,
That's amazing. Wow. I know there's a few of those out there. Okay, where can people find you, follow Born to Adapt? Like what are
yeah.
all the links?
So my social is Trailblader, at Trailblader, pretty much everywhere. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and then we have at Born to Adapt on Instagram, and we try to keep that up to date. We're working on updating the website with more current information that's flowing like monthly because
Awesome.
things are picking up. So we got to
Yeah.
have more communication on there.
Yeah, yeah, race season is upon us. Amazing. Well, we will link all of that in the show notes for the listeners, and thank you so much for joining us, Zach. This has been so fun.
Yeah, super fun. And hopefully I'll meet you one day in real life.
Yeah, I'm sure we will cross paths because we're both in California, so we're not far from one another.
For sure.